Call the meeting to order. First order of business are the minutes from we're being videotaped this evening by Mimi Odgers. First order of business are the minutes of the June 8th, 2011 meeting.
Second.
Discussion, comments, feedback? All in favor of accepting the minutes?
Aye. I abstain.
I abstained too, because I wasn't there for the full meeting.
You're mentioned prominently though.
When I left,
Yeah.
she got up and stormed out. Stomped out.
Okay, I believe you're here with the Pedal People?
Yes.
Great. So, and you're up. The Pedal People Cooperative has requested that the department participate in organics collection. And you're here with your names?
Alex Jarrett.
And Emily working.
And you're here to speak
No.
to your,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yes.
I was having a side conversation. Actually, I wasn't being negative in the affirmative here.
Why don't you tell us what you're proposing?
Okay. You all are in receipt of the email, so you have some idea of the background. So our proposal is to station several totes like that the current system that the city has with the totes for the organics collection, to station those in the bay next to the bay that's currently being used for for your collection, and for us to have a separate contract with Alternative Recycling Systems to empty those totes. We'd also be happy with some arrangement to participate in the existing system, but that would seem like it would simplify the billing situation. And if the city would like some sort of rent for use of that space, that's also something we'd be happy to consider.
I'd be happy to speak now, if now's an appropriate time.
Sure.
I had a meeting recently with Alex and Emily, with Dave Valletta. We've had a couple of correspondence back and forth about the Pedal People's desire to use a portion of the city's facility. In order to transfer food waste, you need to have a facility that has a site assignment from DEP. So they're in a little bit of a quandary, because it's an important part of their business, yet finding a place to transfer this material requires a certain permit that takes time and money and a site to get. So it seems like a sort of a natural synergy in order for them to try to work with the city on this. So our initial responses have been not probably so positive, I think, which is why Alex and Emily are here. Initially we said no, that we don't have enough room to do it. And we've had some other conversations about questions that have come up in terms of, I guess, everything from liability to procurement to other things, which in the last meeting I had told Alex that I would do some research on in terms of procurement issues and that sort of thing. And we also did revisit our operation here on Locust Street to see if there was a way. I think they had expressed a desire to put up the 7 totes somewhere out there. And there may be a way to look at the way we're operating and find space for that to happen. I need to do a little bit more research and discussion with Karen and David on that, but we may be able to find the room physically to do it, which is a little bit, I think, probably more positive than our last discussion that they had when they were here in the office. I spoke with Joe Cook, the procurement officer, earlier this week about it. Like most things in government, there's a process that is maybe not so surprising, or maybe surprising. There is a need to surplus the property in order to enter into a lease agreement with Pedal People for a certain. If we found an area in one of the bays for them to put totes, there'd be a lease agreement with them. In order to enter into a lease agreement with them, the city would need to declare that property surplus in order to do it. Joe Cook said that would take the Board of Public Works requested the City Council to approve the surplusing of the property in order for that to proceed. He said there would need to be a value on that lease, whatever that agreed upon value is. He said that the assessor's office would need to determine what the value of that lease area is. If the lease arrangement with Petal People is less than the value determined by the assessor's office, we would need to run a public notice in the Central Register that indicates that the city is surplusing public property for value less than the assessed value of it. So there's just a little bit of, there's a bunch of strings and things that need to be dealt with in order for this to happen, but the other key part that Joe was telling me was that if the value of the lease is less than $25,000, there isn't a need to issue an RFP or solicit bids for the use of that space for that purpose. So the surplusing of the property would require some type of sketch plan which designates the area, the dimensions, the time constraints, and the definition of the usage of the property for whatever the purpose is, and then that would require city council approval.
So Jim, there's no way to treat this as if they were just dropping off the rubbish they collect or the recycling they collect. The fact that it's organics triggers an entirely different...
Well, the thing that triggers something entirely different is that the approach here would be to take a separate piece of the transfer station and allow them to use it as part of their operation independent of what we do. And we actually, from our perspective, just in terms of keeping track of money and things, it makes it easier, as Alex had described. If they had separate totes, they would have a separate contract with Solid Waste Solutions in a separate area to operate, and we would, and the operations would be completely independent, which from a sort of contractual standpoint actually makes it cleaner for us in terms of implementing it. I talked to Mary Madura. The council is meeting once in July 7th, August 18th, and then twice in September the 1st and 15th.
Is the designation of surplus permanent?
No, I think it's just for the
Term of the contract.
term of the contract.
And I don't, can someone outline briefly why they can't work with our existing program? Is there a reason we can't have their composting flowing into our?
I think logistically we would need to figure out a way. The question is, I guess maybe it's always easier to ask the question than to provide an answer. The question is, how would we determine the percentage of material that we're handling that was due to their operation versus the residents? So if you look at what we're doing, we Karen's implementing a program where we're having residents pay $15 a year now for that service. We've figured out that $15 should cover our cost. I'm not sure how we would be able to differentiate the residents that are using our totes and the Petal People if they were using our totes as well for food waste. So how would we determine, an equitable share for them to pay? I guess is the question.
Could you just identify the barrels? So that our public would use the blue barrels and the other people would use the brown barrels or whatever.
I don't think it's that easy. I think the devil is always in the details on these things in terms of the number of carts that we need. We have 8 carts out there now. Sometimes we need the 8 carts in a week. We talked about going to bi-weekly pickup if they used the carts that we have out there. And logistically, it's a hell of a lot cleaner if it's independent. But then you have to go through the surplusing of the property in order to do it. I guess our contract with Solid Waste Solutions is we pay by the pickup of the cart, right?
For the 5 minutes.
With a 5 minimum. So it gets fairly complicated, I think.
Ro?
Solid Waste Solutions picks up our organic recycling now, and that's who you would use as well?
Yes.
Okay. I'm just trying to think about different ways, because my concern is that there might be 10 other groups like you that want to do the same thing, and so we'd have to treat everybody fairly. Because I'm very supportive of your project, and I think it's great, but we have to treat everybody fairly, which is why they're talking about the surplus concept. What about if all members of their group that are doing organics recycling signed up for Karen's program, for our program? And so that let's say there's 10 people doing it, they all fill out the forms, and would that be an inequitable solution? Would that be too many? I guess we don't know if it's too many unless we keep it
Right.
separate.
I think part of the problem is that their service area isn't just residential.
It isn't, it's true, but it's mostly residential. Something like 130 people are actively separating their waste, so we're not taking it in their trash.
Right.
I'm thinking about the bags. Beginning July 1st, will the pedal people transition to the bags?
Yes.
Is there a way to do organics bags? Does that solve any problems? You have to collect it in something. I assume it'll be in the bins, but you could line a bin with a bag and...
Yeah, but if they had to buy, let's say, the small bags for it, 50 cents a bag, they'd be paying a hefty price for, I think, composting the material over the course of the year.
You have to empty the plastic bags too.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they're not compostable.
All right, cancel that. Karen?
I just wanted to mention, if we went to twice a week pickup, it would be Monday and Wednesday, which would leave us short on capacity for Saturday. But the real problem with adding the Wednesday pickup is that the route comes around, it's while the transfer station would be open. So on Monday, they're out of there by 6:30 in the morning before open. On Wednesday, they would have to do it during regular operating hours, which we're trying to avoid.
Is they being solid waste solutions?
Just the way they have their routes.
Right.
So some of the other things in the meeting with the pedal people, we were encouraging them to explore other avenues, which I think Alex touched on in his communication with the board. But just in terms of looking for other sites and means of dealing with their business needs without requiring the city's involvement in it. And we had encouraged that the state is actually the permits that's necessary in order to transfer food waste, like they're trying to do here. Those set of regulations are actually being revised by the state right now, and the state is in the process of trying to streamline their regulations in regard to organics management. So it's really a good time. I had suggested that they get in touch with Sarah Weinstein in Boston, who's heading up that effort on revising the regulations to try to get an exemption for organics transfer. They're building in exemptions for the need for permits for organics transfer for other similar types of operations. I talked to Karen about the Cambridge DPW, where they're allowing them to transfer food waste at the DPW yard without a site assignment. And that's actually in the draft regulations that are being revised. So it's clear to me that the state is trying to, as they're made aware of things that are going to facilitate organics collection and management, they're trying to streamline the regulations to allow it. I was on vacation last week, and I haven't had a chance to follow up with the people in Boston that I know, but I would certainly be willing to advocate for that change to be made in the regulation. Those regulations are on a fast track. I think whatever happens is probably not fast enough, for Alex and Emily. But that's one part of it is the change in the regulation. Another part of it is identifying either other sites or farms have an exemption from taking material like this under certain quantities. So there may be ways to sort of complete the business plan without the city involvement. But again, everything either takes time or takes time and money.
I'm curious, have you given thought to the size and the type of containers you'd use to haul this compost material?
That we would be using to haul to the transfer center.
Yeah.
Well, we use 18-gallon totes.
Rubbermaid totes.
That seems like it would be awfully difficult to empty into another container. I mean, compost material's really heavy, so that's, I mean, a 5-gallon pail of organic material is heavy. And this was over 3 tons, yeah?
Yeah, so this is what we've been transferring it in the past however many years we've
And
had.
how does that work?
Often the totes aren't full.
Yeah.
So when we're doing a run, you might have 3 compost customers, each with like 3 gallons. You maybe end up with 9 gallons total in a tote. And at the end of the run, that's all that's in that one tote. So you're empty like a half tote sometimes.
We're able
They-
to do it.
Yeah, they do.
But
they
it's
can-
heavy.
They can get heavy, but
Well, and I'm wondering about spills and cleaning the container as you leave and whether it smells. I'm just, some of those issues. I just don't know if that's would be a problem or not.
Well, just as a corollary to your question, I think the missing data is how much they would be dropping off compared to how much we're already collecting. Do we have any, in your discussions, did that come up?
Well, just based on a conversation we had, I think they were saying they would need up to about 7 totes a week, maximum, I think.
although I don't know if we made the accurate assumption about the tote size. What is the tote size you guys use?
64.
64.
I
Okay.
think we did.
Okay. Just.
So it might be somewhere around 50, sometimes it might be 50-50 roughly, right? I mean, we do it when we're busy, it could be 7, 8 totes a week, right?
Yes.
So it might be the same amount as what we're already doing.
Would be maybe equivalent.
Yeah.
Alex, what do you do with the organics now?
We send it to various different sites and just do basically home composting. And that has grown to a point where we can't continue it. It's likely we'll have to start trashing some of it if we don't come up with some other option.
And what's the, if you don't mind me asking, this could be private, and just say so if it is, but what's the residential commercial split? I'm just wondering if Roe's idea of having each household who's participating pay the $15 has any.
We would pay it for them. We'd be happy, and that's not a
Well,
But
that's
the
not
issue is that
Oh, I see.
you're collecting from commercial customers.
right. What is our almost entirely residential?
Yeah, for a while we had one restaurant, but they recently stopped.
We
And we have a few small like businesses that have a little compost for their like break room. Small.
residential
Yeah.
size though.
Yeah, it's like
Right,
it's similar.
right,
A
right.
few gallons of compost.
yeah, it's generally not. We can't be competitive on large amounts of that usually restaurants
Right.
provide. But there are several businesses that have. So we could continue to divert those businesses and just do. But I don't know if that, because you have to do some sort of educational component, so every person would have to, who each brought things for, would have to come and do, I'm not sure if I get it.
Well, it just came up right now, so we don't know the answer. I think the concept would be that Roe is raising is each resident would need to get a compost card like any other resident. We do a survey and things when folks get those cards because we're doing a pilot program and we're seeking information about the users. So if that avenue would be followed, then the concept would be people would pay the $15 for the card, they'd fill out our survey and give us the information, and then they would need to produce that card for your business when you were stopping at their home to pick up their food waste, and it works in that fashion. And then I guess theoretically we would need to have some certification from you that the customers that you're bringing your food waste is only being generated from residential customers that have produced a card that proves that they're part of the city system.
Right.
You still may wind up
sounds
with
very difficult. To,
Yeah.
more garbage than can be picked up once a week.
Well, we'd probably need to go to twice a week pickup. I think that's pretty much a given. If everything gets tossed in together, and then I don't know about Karen knows more about coordinating the pickup dates than I do, but it would be twice a week pickup because we just don't have the capacity to have too many totes up there.
I suspect the board would be happy to see something worked out, but I mean, I think that discussion is more appropriate between you and the staff in terms of the details, so that everyone gets to a spot that feels right. Mike?
Well, I do have one other thought, and if this goes toward the surplus property piece of it, we have said repeatedly that we don't have enough land over there to do the recycling activities that we want to, so unless there's a piece, a time duration perhaps that might make it surplus for a certain period of time, and we don't expect to use that land for that period of time, otherwise, I'm not quite sure how we could declare it surplus.
I find that's why I was thinking about this other option,
Right.
because I agree with you. I mean, it seems like, even in our discussions about reuse centers and everything, that there just isn't, we don't have, or, you know, when we've been talking about the solicitation issues, that there, especially on weekends, that there's lots of people around. You guys know best on that, but it just seems like that going the surplus way, I think that's very creative, it's very interesting, but I'm concerned about even being not only the equitable issue with other people in our community, but also equitable in terms of the use of the DPW.
I would just put a proposal that we would pay for 7 totes to be emptied, regardless of, because that's the maximum we would bring, and I think that the city would have a sense if since you have a sense currently of the volumes that are coming in, you'd have a sense if we were exceeding that. So we would just pay for that 7 totes, and which would probably pay for a second emptying. It seems hard to imagine that the city would come out at a loss with that arrangement.
Well, again, we'll let you and the staff work on this, if that's all right. Does that seem,
Fine.
just
Yeah.
discuss it some more, see if
I mean, it'd be a lot
something
cleaner.
makes sense.
It'd be a lot cleaner if we were able to integrate it into our current operations, that are the logistics of how to do it.
Right.
It seems like there's a lot of questions out there. The rules might be changing with DEP and Karen's issue about timing of the second pickup. That could be a collateral issue, so.
So, does that leave it in a comfortable spot? They'll talk some more?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Uh,
We can set up another meeting with Alex and try to explore. The best thing to do probably is to explore all the avenues to find out if there's one if any of them are going to work, and how quickly we can get things done.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you for coming in. Good. Karen, will you be here for a while? Are you?
I can, well,
I wonder if,
20 minutes.
oh yeah, further down, there's going to be a discussion of a committee to explore the reuse recycling center under old business and the solid waste action committee update. I wonder if we could schedule that while Karen is here.
To take it out of order?
Okay, so the old business number 4. All in favor?
Aye.
So I think you've all received in the email the co-chairs of the solid waste task force that the mayor appointed last year. Both wrote this week to say, hey, what's up with the recycling and reuse committee that they had hoped to see formed by now. So I thought we should talk about that.
We had brought it up at the previous meeting about the fact that we might change the solid waste action committee into a segue into the reuse recycling center, because several members on that committee had thought that they would be interested in working on that particular committee. And so this Wednesday we brought it up to that group, and they were very enthusiastic about being designated as that particular committee.
Okay.
And so we have taken it on ourselves to change the solid waste action committee into the committee to explore reuse and recycling. And then we said that we would bring it back to the board for your suggestion. That's one aspect. So I guess we should have a discussion about that, and then MJ had another great idea too.
Now how about, I got the impression that some people in the community were hoping this could be inclusive, draw more people into the process.
We asked Karen to open up the applications to other people already. Jesus has joined that group, and Karen said that she would open up the applications to other members.
I think Mark from the Solid Waste Task Force would like to. Thoughts, comments?
I'm just gonna add that, another part of the recommendations that came out from the task force was to take a look at, what is it, zero waste?
Zero waste.
Zero waste plan, planning for, or moving the city towards a zero waste plan, and that this reuse, recycling center is really a nice first step in that direction.
So MJ's idea, which I thought was great, we haven't discussed it with Karen or the committee, but the reuse recycling center would be a subset of the zero waste concept. So the zero waste concept is something that the mayoral task force had asked us to work on, but unless there's so many applicants that are interested on volunteering on this subcommittee, that we would consider the reuse recycling center as the first effort on this zero waste committee. So
Right,
that
and
meets
that
with
makes sense.
everybody's agreement, staff comment.
They're having a sidebar conversation, I'm sorry.
Oh, unrelated?
I'm sorry, I was distracting that from
So I guess where to locate it, obviously a sticky issue.
And/or there are other options. Location was one someone took on. The idea of doing it as a monthly endeavor, and especially linking it up with some of the other monthly endeavors like the rigid plastics and shredding, some of the other events that are already scheduled. The idea that we, until we find a permanent location, that we were looking into using existing events as a way to put that together.
Okay. Does that seem all right? Ms. Odgers?
Well, a couple questions. First is, so have you already actually started doing this committee, and have you said somebody's already taken on looking at locations, so have people already been sort of assigned tasks with the committee?
People have already been assigned tasks.
Uh-huh.
This committee is the Solid Waste Action Committee that has been going on for how many years?
18 months?
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, maybe closer to 2 years, because it was an education piece that came
Yeah,
out of the,
right.
and it was really focused on education before, and
Right.
the idea was, and it sort of went into hibernation as the task force was at work. We decided to just wait and see what came out of the task force. After the task force issued its recommendations back in April, we brought those to the committee, and the question was, of this, what are we interested in moving forward on? And the committee, a number of the members of the committee, a couple of the members of the committee had always had some interest in this reuse recycling center. And there's been a lot of discussion of it over the course of the years. It's clearly something that keeps bubbling up. So
Right.
there's
Should we
somebody
give a-
who's done a lot of research. I mean, it sounds like
Karen
there's
has
been
done a lot of research, and a couple members of the committee were taking some of that research and going for the next step. Should we put out applications and we get a large amount of response, we may still be able to have two committees, and that might be more pleasing to the board. But until we know what the nature of until we get the opportunities out there for people that are interested in working on these subcommittees, we won't really know if that's a possibility to have more than one committee.
So you're going to put the word out for more members, focus on finding a site and coming up with a mechanism.
I wouldn't say finding a site. I think finding a mechanism to try to. I think
Well, we
it's been
didn't eliminate finding a site because there might be some other options, but looking at other communities and bringing that together, and open for discussion.
Yes, I think there's everyone is aware that the location issue is
Right.
really difficult to pin down at the moment. So no one wants to put more uses on. Well, the idea is, if this space is maxed out here, there's a clear understanding that this might not be the place for it to happen.
Right.
So I don't want us, I don't think, find a site, permanent site isn't what the group is doing, they're trying to figure out how to make this happen without tying it to a specific location that may or may not work.
Unless, ideally, dream-wise, in the midst of doing research, somebody comes forth and says, we have this property, it's not being used for anything else right now, we would love to donate it to the city for a year to be used for a reason. I mean, you can have dreams,
Yes.
so, it's an important thing.
I just don't want us to get locked into a.
Sure.
Oh, no, I'm just, no,
Yeah, it makes
yes,
sense.
exactly.
I think though, is a strong feeling out there that people just love to see anything happen. Even if it's like the second Saturday of the month, there's a tent over it on the Smith
Exactly.
boat front
Right,
lawn or
right.
whatever.
Right.
Um,
So it may start paired up with other events like the solid plastic,
Rigid. Rigid plastics.
yeah, rigid plastics. And it may segue into, every quarter, and then it might get more, yeah, so. Karen has lots of data on other people. There was a group, the swap and
Concord drop-in swap.
drop-in swap. And so there is other information out there that gives us some models to use and to look at. So it's opening stages.
I'm just wondering, when do you have your meetings and all that information? Because I mean, I'm not necessarily saying I wanted to join, but I would want to be at least,
You want a video?
well, I want to observe as a citizen what's happening, because it is a really important issue. And I just, having served on that other committee, I saw that there was a lot of people with a lot of good ideas that, I don't know if there's as much visibility in this particular committee. So when is it that you have your meetings?
We have it on the third Wednesday of the month at 8:30
8:30 in
in
the
this
morning.
room. Yeah,
Third Thursday.
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
So some Wednesdays, like next month, my whole life will be devoted to DPW and solid waste.
Stay the whole
From-
day with
All
us.
happy
Yes,
days.
exactly. I thought I might just bring out a laptop and just not move.
Okay. Sounds great.
Evolution.
Can some of this go onto the DPW blog?
Yeah.
Do you have a solid waste blog?
No, it would go on to the DPW blog. But that's a great way to advertise that we want more volunteers. So, yeah, I'll do that this week.
Is that okay? Great. And then, does that encompass the Solid Waste Action Committee update?
It does. And I know Karen, I don't know if you're staying for the whole meeting, but this is sort of relevant to that. The pay-as-you-throw bags
Mhm.
are now available at Big Y.
Oh, cool.
And it was nice to see them out there, and I just wanted to thank you for getting them out there early.
Well, they're actually available in 8 stores right now,
Well, I only saw them at Big Y.
and we're expecting 10 by the end of the week, and
And I presume people
50.
can use them,
yes, we
Anytime.
can start using.
So we can start using them now? Oh, okay.
We have 15 stores participating, and then the DPW and the mayor's office will be selling the mini bags.
I was just gonna say, if you walk into Cooper's, they've got their bags right at the entrance. When you walk in, you practically trip over them, so if you need a bag, that's a good place to go. The other thing is, I just wanted to make the board aware that we're having some quality control issues with the small bags, with the seams breaking open, and it was something Karen was looking into resolving, but we had a couple of complaints, and when you look at the small bags, there seemed to be kind of some type of manufacturing defect or something with one of the seams on the side, and they break open pretty easily, so.
Well, we definitely wouldn't want to put compost in it.
Or kitty litter or anything.
Yeah.
no, we don't want cheesy bags.
And
We'll
we
get,
don't want to start off the program with faulty bags.
no, that'd be so bad.
So the manufacturer rep was out here this week, and he was actually going through some of them, taking random samples to go back for testing. We were trying to address it
Yeah.
ASAP.
Are you satisfied with the big bags? I mean, it's a nice sturdy bag.
Yes, I am satisfied, but I've been watching people dragging bags across the parking lot, and they're not designed to do that. So I hope people will use some common sense, that if that's the way they have to do it, then they're probably gonna have to put their contractor bag inside our bag, because it's not gonna hold up to that kind of dragging.
Wow.
That's what have you, it's the drawstring, you know, the kids, the minute you put a drawstring on it, that's when they start dragging it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, drag and drop, you know.
Yeah.
So we'll have some barrels so that people can pick up their own stuff if that's what they want to do.
Okay.
Other than that, and there's samples out they're hanging up on the wall if you want to see. Or I could bring them.
Are we gonna stop selling the small bags until we know for sure what's going on?
Yes.
Okay,
Good,
good.
thank you.
Good.
All right, great. Thanks, Karen.
Anything else?
Okay, so now we're back up to new business 2, contract for Super Bowl C572
Yes, sir.
to cationic polymer. Oh, no, it's a C572 cationic polymer to Aries Chemical in the amount not to exceed $24,999.
Move approval.
Second.
This is our yearly contract for coagulant at the water treatment plant to assist in the filtration of the organics. This year's price is about almost 8 cents more than last year's per pound. So this chemical has gone up just a little bit, about 10%. We had 2 other bids. Next highest bid was $1.27 a pound. The highest bid was $1.97 a pound. So there's almost a 100% difference between high and low bid.
Any questions? All in favor of approving the contract?
Aye.
Next, 1-year extension to the landfill operations contract to Solid Waste Solutions in the amount of $571,459 plus consumer price index.
Move approval.
Second.
This is the extension of the contract once again. Hopefully that will be our last one, but I believe that will be running into somewhere after June of 2012 at this point, because the tonnage is down a little bit. So, like I said, this is just the annual extension that we do with Solid Waste Solutions. They're doing a fine job up there, and
Comments or questions?
lots to say about it.
How is the tonnage working out?
Jim, do you have recent numbers?
I don't have recent numbers. I have anecdotal evidence that the tonnage has been up quite a bit. I was talking to Karen earlier this week, and she said that the tonnage has come up quite a bit the last couple of weeks. So I can have some numbers put together for the next board meeting. But we are starting to see an increase.
Good.
How does this compare to last year's price?
Same, just goes by an increase, the CPI increaser. We did make some changes last year when we went to a 5-day-a-week operation instead of 6-day. So some things of the contract did change, being closed Saturdays now, and then spending extra work on Wednesdays instead of being there Saturdays and overtime.
Yeah.
So there's some adjustments in the contract that were done last year to address that.
So then
And
this
they're
would,
addressed in this extension also.
okay. So this would have been less than last year probably, I would think.
I don't recall if there was a net increase or decrease from last year's contract.
What's the CPI? Do we know 2%?
We don't know what the CPI is for this contract yet. I think it's based on last year's contract value plus the CPI to be determined
Right.
In July.
in July.
Right.
Doesn't come up
Yeah.
for a couple months.
But usually it's between 2 and 3%.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
All in favor of approving this contract?
Mimi had a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jim, can you just tell me, is Duso still using, have they come back to using our landfill, or are they still not using us?
The last I knew, which was, my information's a couple of weeks dated, they weren't using the landfill just very modest amounts of material coming in. So.
Okay, thanks.
Gene?
Is the closing date now etched in stone?
No.
It's not.
No.
That was my question, okay.
Right now it's based on capacity.
Yep.
And once you reach that capacity, that's a decision that I think the board will start looking at next spring as to how far we want to move forward with an expansion versus not an expansion, excuse me, extension of the contract? Or do we reach a certain grade and then call it quits? So
Okay.
we don't have to keep paying operational costs.
Depends whether it's coming in at a rate that would sustain
Yeah,
a small surplus at least.
whether the numbers will work.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Thank you.
Okay, so all in favor of approving the extension?
Aye.
Next contract for pavement marking paint to Franklin Paint Company in the amount not to exceed $25,000.
Move approval.
Second.
This is our annual contract for pavement marking paint. This is the line paint that we do, the double yellow solid lines, the white solid lines, not crosswalks, not stop bars. It's gone up anywhere between 10 to 15% depending on the color. Everything went up, glass beads went up a penny a pound. Yellow went from $9.45 a gallon to $10.60 a gallon, and white went from $8.95 a gallon to $10.45 a gallon. We did solicit bids and had 2 no bids from Permaline Corp and Atlantic Broom.
What are the quantities that you buy it in?
250 gallons of white and 1,000 gallons of yellow and 8,000 pounds of glass beads for reflectivity.
So does it come in 5-gallon cans or 50?
It comes in 500 gallon totes,
500-gallon totes.
that's my understanding.
Wow,
It's huge.
that's a big bucket.
But what do you do
Maybe they're
with the
250.
white?
I
White
think
is
they're
only
250 totes.
250.
They're
Still
Yeah,
big.
They're like-
Still big.
They're about 3 by 3 by 3. They're about a cubic yard of material. They're fairly large totes.
Gene?
The difference in the price that went up much more in the white than the other, how, is that pretty much standard? I'm just
know-
curious, the two different color paints.
I know 2 years ago, paint prices went up exponentially practically because they had a shortage of pigment for it.
Titanium dioxide prices are way up.
Thank you very much.
For what?
Titanium dioxide.
Titanium dioxide.
Time to sell?
It's still
You
probably.
got stocks in that one, I suppose.
So anyways, as far as why white went up a lot more than yellow, it probably has to do with the pigments and the dyes in it. That's all. And like I said, we do use the glass beads as an added feeder to get the reflectivity out of it.
It is titanium dioxide, the white.
I think it's also used as a base for lots of paints. I'm no paint expert.
Well, you know.
I think it's zinc oxide.
You could have sold me a gallon.
Sign me up.
All right, so all in favor of approving the contract for pavement marking paint?
Aye.
Next, change order 19, a contract 241-03 to AECom for construction phase engineering in the amount of $12,900.
Move approval.
Second.
This is an amendment with AECom for construction phase and engineering services on the 2 well projects. On those well projects, because of proposed change orders, the projects have gone on longer than originally anticipated because of some of the change order work that the city has requested and some other change order work that's been necessary in order to complete the project. So the scope of work for their amendment, as they describe it, is associated with 1 additional field inspection site visit, review and processing of 2 additional contractor pay requisitions, review and preparation of 2 additional SRF pay requisitions, review and preparation of 13 additional proposed change orders and 5 additional formal change orders. So a lot of the paperwork and construction service management, I guess, of the contract is what this is for. This will go through, at the last board meeting, the board approved the change order with Bay State Regional Contractors for some of the change order work that was done, and this amendment for AECom was for services that they had provided in negotiations on the city's behalf for the change order work with the contractor, so that's sort of the basis of it.
Jim, would you remind us on the value of the construction that this engineering covered?
I don't know. I don't have that number with me.
Does this bring this portion of the project to a close?
It will. We have one remaining change order that's being negotiated. We've come up with some issues with the operation of the sump pumps in each well. An issue came up last week when I was on vacation, and they're looking at discussing with the contractor a change order to change the elevation of the sump pump and improve the dewatering aspects of the sump pump out there. So it's sort of the last aspect of the project that needs to be done, and it's included, the work associated with that is included in this change.
Okay. Yes.
Just a question, it feels like we consider change orders to this particular work. It almost feels like at every meeting. Is this usual, or it just feels like it's been a whole series? I know some of it, when we were, this was stimulus funding, or that was related to.
Right. You know, I think it's not uncommon to have, you know, this number of change orders on a project. Part of the challenge with this particular one is that we have two wells with pumps and things that we were doing work on that hadn't really been touched since 1950. So the minute you start looking at something, it's a little bit like working on a job in your kitchen, and you know, you look at something and then two other things pop up. A lot of the change order work came up in that sort of under that vein. Things that problems we weren't aware of until we took the station apart and started looking at it. So.
This is the 19th one for this project.
Yes.
I think she was alluding to that, wasn't she?
I think she was saying that there was a lot of change orders on the well project in general.
Okay.
It just seems like
Seems like
it's
there's
been
been
a
a lot
while
of
ago.
Yeah, and Ned's comment was that this was Amendment 19 for ECOM, but that included, this contract actually goes back to the water treatment plant, so
Okay.
19 is a heck of a lot of
So
amendments.
it's not
for that.
19.
It's
so
not 19
thank
for
you.
this project.
Yeah, not 19.
I wasn't sure what you were,
That number, yeah, thank you for making that clarification.
And generally,
But
though,
still,
you're satisfied
generally-
that the $13,000 is reasonably proportionate to the amount of construction involved?
I am, yeah.
All in favor of approving the change order?
Aye.
Contract for catch basin frames and grates and manholes with covers to E.J. Prescott in an amount not to exceed $25,000.
Move approval.
Second.
this is an annual purchase of catch basin frames and covers and manhole frames and covers from the sewer drain department. We had three bidders. Low bid was E.J. Prescott at $12,657. The high bid was Quality Water Products of Southbury, Mass. of $15,369. So not much variation between the two. They did drop in price from last year. The catch basins dropped about $30 from last year, and the manhole frames and covers dropped about $28 from last year in price.
So where does the 25,000 come from?
That's
That's
not to
30B.
exceed. The way these are put out is that
Yeah.
under procurement, you're allowed to have contracts up to 25,000, over 25,000 is a formal quote. So what it does is that we got a low bid on this. If all of a sudden that we find out mid-year we need 3 more covers,
Okay, so
we
it's-
can do an amendment to this to go up to 25% more than the original contract. So you could actually take this 12,656, multiply it by 1.25 and come up with a new value that we can max out if we had a need to purchase a couple more covers during the course of time.
Okay. All in favor of approving the contract for catch basin frames and grates?
Aye.
Next is the tourism policy. This is for the road signs for businesses that are out in the outskirts of the city who would like to have a sign at a nearby intersection directing people to their facility. Laura Hanson took your comments from our last meeting, incorporated them into the document.
Since yours is not flagged like mine is, I can go over what the changes were. Under application number 2B, and C were changed to reflect the board's comments. On item 3, permits, fees, and duration, item B was changed with about the additional sign installation and not having a trench permit attached to it if it's in the same vicinity. Item E on page 2 was changed in regards to a reinstallation fee of $100. And item G was changed because we had no fee to remove the sign. You changed it from $50 to remove a sign to making it $100 for reinstatement of a sign. So those 2 items got changed per your comments, and that was it. There's no changes to the rest of the document or the application.
There's some little wordsmithy type changes. No.
Nothing huge or great substance.
Laura and I have emailed back and forth a couple of just readability stuff. So that's the concept, and then just little readability changes here. The opening paragraph. So what do you think? Does this seem reasonable to try?
The minutes said that you approved it last month, so.
Oh, did we?
Yes,
Oh,
the minutes
alrighty.
said.
And said that if the
Subject to changes.
Yeah, but
Okay.
the changes as separate.
So no action required.
Does this mean that the committee can be disbanded?
I'll contact them right away and give them the good news.
All right.
And thank them for their service, of course. And next is campaigning, leafleting, and soliciting.
Yeah, I made the changes as I saw them being requested by the board from the last meeting. You have marked up a Word document that shows the additions and changes that were discussed. Those were taken from my notes and scribblings. I hope I got them all. I believe I did. You had looked at only doing it on Saturdays and holidays. You looked at some changes for community organizations, nonprofits. You looked at having separate space for solicitation versus campaigning and leafletting. Those were all addressed. The conflicts were taken out on page 2 with conflicting goals, so that we could have, I guess, some. Yeah.
Conflicting goals.
I was looking for the right word.
We can have some conflict.
So I think it reflected all the changes that we had discussed at the last meeting. It's up to you if you want to address it tonight, or you want to take a thorough one last read of this before you implement this policy with a vote, which will be next month if you did wait. I believe it's the 20th next month is our board meeting.
Well, I could move approval of this policy as is.
I think I could second that.
Okay.
If you were to move approval on it.
I guess I will move approval then. 'Cause
And then I'll second
I
it.
sense
Okay,
support.
good. Any comments or thoughts? I like it. All in favor of approving this policy?
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Next is the sanitary sewer services policy addressing the city's responsibility for backups in houses.
Once again, I worked with Jim Gospel on this and also provide some more clear information on this because I want to make sure to address the storm drain service connections also in one policy. So as you're aware, this policy was originally done for sewer services in 1999 by the board, and so it's been expanded to create some definitions and also integrate the drain components, because we do have people that are now hooking up to drain systems for foundation drains or footing drains, things of that nature. And I think I've got it all, but I do want you to take a very careful read of this and get back to me at the next board meeting if you feel the language is appropriate to move forward. Once this is done, what we will do is we will put this in bill stuffers so that all our customers do get this. And also, the bigger part was the city not being held liable for any damages, including personal property, e.g. clothing, art, personal belongings caused by the backflow. That's on the second page under liabilities and claims process. I know the board wanted some language regarding that also.
Is there a new word in the English dictionary for include?
Ooh.
I think there is.
I'm glad to hear we're at the advent of the vocabulary.
And where do you see that?
Sixth line down, second paragraph from the top, not counting the note. In the italic,
Oh.
in the italicized portion. Oh,
Oh, okay. I didn't even see the K. Time for new glasses. Thank you. Good catch.
Yeah, I don't know.
Same. Great, all right, so we'll reflect on this and look at it in July. Gary, is there anything we should have talked about, do you think? That we missed?
One minor item is a fairly big pavement unraveling. It's not really a pothole yet on Glendale Road. Not too far from Route 66.
Okay.
And consistent with our policy of trying to keep that road in good shape. The butters, take a look.
Yeah. That only had an 1.5 inch overlay after we did the water line
It looks
project.
like that's what's come up.
Yeah. Okay. I'll put a work order out on it tomorrow morning.
Ned, is
Sure,
there
I have a
anything?
couple items. There's some nice kudos and thanks from some citizens of Northampton that were included in your package. One from Pat Neary and the other one from Lydia Netler regarding our staff and work that they've done recently. There's also a small package regarding Sam's Pizza downtown. Some problems we've been having with the tables and chairs and the businesses that reside next to Sam's. Just so you know, that is being addressed through the License Commission on July 12th. They've asked Sam to appear to address these chronic issues that they've been having. The last thing I had was, I left a couple of these packages out. I spent the day, good part of the day yesterday with Niche Engineering and Mass DOT. Mass DOT is hiring the engineer and putting in the TIP program, the Traffic Improvement Program, to redo the intersection of Conce and Pleasant Street. With that, the first picture you see is a signalized intersection. This is a very preliminary concept, and looking at what they would need to do there based on the traffic counts that are out there. They range anywhere from Conce Street being 9,000 to 10,000 vehicles a day to southbound Route 5 being 20,000 vehicles a day, and that's why you're seeing additional lanes being put there and so on. The next one is a it's a modified single lane roundabout. This one had to be literally thrown out right away because it only accommodated a WB50 tractor trailer truck, which the city needs to accommodate WB67s. So we morphed from this one to the last picture, which is a modified single lane roundabout. As you can see, the inner circle for the roundabout is oblong almost, and that's to accommodate those WB67 turns. There's also a drop lane from Conce Street, a dedicated lane for those not going around the roundabout. It's because you have such a short distance between southbound Route 5, Conce Street entrances, and the queuings between those two are very short. So the engineers felt it was necessary to put this side lane for those continuing southbound from Conce onto Route 5 South as a separate lane. Like I said, these are concept level only. We're waiting for the functional design report on this. And that comes in, I'm more than happy to distribute it to the board and the Transportation Parking Commission, because what will happen after that FDR is done, it solely moves to 25% review. So we want to make sure that the city gets their comments in their premature to MassDOT. Even though this is a MassDOT layout, a MassDOT project, the goal is MassDOT, after they take care of this intersection, they'll be turning over this section of the layout from Holyoke Street, about 100 feet south of Holyoke Street, to basically the dike system as being city layout going forward.
I noticed the beautiful aerial shot of the city's wastewater treatment plant.
Very nice.
Roundabout.
Other than that,
I like the way the traffic, the roundabout looks an awful lot like one of our settling tanks.
Yeah,
It's nice.
I thought that was an aesthetic continuation.
Do we need another settling tank? And maybe we could put it out in the middle of the city.
we might need an extra aeration tank for nitrogen reduction.
Okay.
A fountain.
Yes!
Brilliant! Brilliant!
Welcome to Northampton. Where the women are strong and so are some of the others.
Great. Okay, thanks.
Just a couple of things. At the last board meeting, there was a proposed amendment for SEA consultants in the Bradford Street Transfer Station. The board had requested for the breakdown.
Transfer station.
What did I say?
Transfer station.
Pump station, sorry, transfer station. The Bradford Street Pump Station. And I had received a breakdown from them just, I don't know, a day or so ago, and asked for further information from them, so we didn't have the information in time to get it in front of the board before the meeting, so we pushed it off until July. So there'll be probably an email with some information well in advance of the next board meeting, and a chance to take a look at it before we have a discussion about it. And then the second thing I just wanted to raise, and I wanted to thank David Shearer for spending the better part of a day with us on Monday. We had the Cadmus Group in under an EPA contract doing a workshop with us, a utility-specific workshop on effective utility management. So because we received stimulus money on the well project, we were eligible for a workshop and some training sponsored by EPA, which was provided through one of their consultants. So they came in and spent Monday, the better part of Monday, with David and Ed and myself, Dave Sparks, Nicole Sanford, and Anne Marie Schauer on discussions about the management of the water division and what we're doing right there, and what we're, where there might be areas for improvement and that sort of thing. So I think we all found it to be a really effective session and a good opportunity to take, it was about a 6-hour event to take that time and just review our operations from a management standpoint. And sometimes we get so busy in the day-to-day operational aspects that taking time out to consider how we're doing overall is a luxury, and I think Monday was time well spent.
I agree.
Is there would it make sense to take 5 minutes at the next meeting and just summarize?
They're gonna give us a follow-up.
Yes.
Right.
In a couple of weeks, and yeah, we could use that as a basis.
Great.
Yeah, I think by the time, like David was saying, I think by the time the July meeting rolls around, we should have there was a couple of things. I think there was going to be a synopsis of the workshop in written form that would be able to provide to the board and have a discussion about it. That'd be great.
Great.
Do that.
So we should put that on the agenda. That's it? Great, thank you. BJ?
I'll start.
BJ.
Yeah, yesterday, the discussion about the intersection right in front of the high school.
Yes.
There was a comment that came up that was actually a comment I was gonna make, but Jim Nash made it before I did, in terms of the speed limit in front of the high school,
It's 35.
35.
Yeah.
Who sets that, and is there any?
It's a state regulation. It's done through speed studies. I believe that was probably done in the 1960s. That speed regulation went into effect. And so what they do as part of speed regulations, they look at the 85th percentile of what people are traveling. So that if we were to actually fund, or actually not fund, but put forth an application to the state based on current traffic counts, I'm positive the state would change it to 40 miles an hour. Because that's what the 85th percentile is traveling through that neighborhood. This is the same thing that
So
happened.
we gear it towards what the cars are traveling rather than
That's
the land
right.
use adjacent to the road?
That's correct. That's what the speed study is about, because they assume 85% of the people are driving what they feel to be a safe and reasonable speed.
Oh.
I mean,
Is there any
It's not-
opportunity to
it's not
challenge them on
85%
that?
of the pedestrians.
We went through this on Route 66, is that when you start up at, I call it Kings Hill, West Hampton Town Line, the speed limit's 25 miles an hour, and as you come down the hillside and make that dead man's curve, they used to call it, it goes to 30, then after West Farms it goes to 35. There was concern about doing a speed study there And the way that roadway is designed, granted it's designed for 35 miles an hour, you probably can feel comfortable traveling at 45 to 50 through most of it. And the concern was if we did a study that those rates, the speed limits would elevate substantially. So we did nothing on Route 66, we left it alone. What Laura's hoping to do is through some modifications in traffic calming, be able to get the speed down so that we can show the state that the 85th percentile is actually doing 30 now or 25.
Then how is the Route 9, as it goes through Smith College, the speed limit's 25 miles
It's
an hour?
not.
That's what
It's
it's posted at.
35.
No,
It's
it's an advisory speed limit.
It's an advisory speed limit because it's a yellow sign with black letters.
And it says MPH, not speed limit.
Well, I didn't see
When
those
you
letters.
get off the highway,
Well, he yells at
when
me
you-
when I'm driving and I'm going faster than 25.
it's just telling you, it's just, that's information.
Yeah, but you're right, there is a yellow 25 miles per hour on that new island that you guys put in the road.
Well, it's not on New Island, but it's okay, it's close.
The lumpy thing there.
It's before that, it's in between the New Island and the
Right
lumpy
near that
thing.
new granite curbing that's in the middle of Route 9.
So they're
It's
more like
beyond
guidelines.
Right.
It's before it.
Like
It's
advisory,
right,
you
yeah.
come off the interstate and your ramp, it says 30 miles an hour.
It says
Yellow
35
sign.
mph yellow, it's not the speed limit.
Okay, well, is there any opportunity for us to do the similar thing at the high school that
There
you guys
is,
have done?
and
Because
that's
the
what-
stuff at Smith College has really slowed people down.
Oh, it has.
That's what one of the things that was discussed last night by Laura was these advisory limits.
Yeah.
Because it is an absolute disaster that,
My take on it is that the key thing is, I think the 2 parked cars, if you eliminate those spaces, that would help. More paint. So I don't know if you can go to are the lines sufficiently gone so we could go to the 2-foot wide bars longer, possibly?
They are definitely in the travel ways. You get towards the curbs, I don't think they are. They
Right.
probably have to be ground down.
Yeah.
Could there be something like the temporary speed bump on Pomeroy Terrace? I mean, is some traffic calming make sense there during the school year?
Well, that's one
Stay
thing that
calm.
was asked last night was that the PTO put together a traffic calming request so it could be addressed as a traffic calming request, what we do for every other neighborhood street. And also a small history was presented last night that I don't think people understood the 20-year history of what's been done out there also. There was going to be a signalized intersection at Woodlawn with a pedestrian phase. I heard people gasping like, you kidding me? But it was in place 20 years ago, and my understanding it got voted down by the neighborhood out there. They didn't want it. And the fact that we removed the roadway right in front of the high school and made it a grassed-in area, things like that. So we've done some calming out there, but the people going on Route 9 just don't, I don't think they're paying attention, and I don't think the students are paying attention either when they step out off the curb. I think it's a twofold thing. And Captain Sinkowitz, the police chief, was talking about getting into assemblies at the beginning of the school year and having discussions about safety and pedestrians and crosswalks and so on.
I walk down there quite a bit, and it is tricky.
Yeah.
It is a
It's
tricky
tricky
pedestrian,
every-
it's very tricky because of all the turning movements. Even if people are going slow and they're taking a turning movement, it's just dangerous. There's too much going on there for people, I think, really to recognize if there is a pedestrian or not, because they're trying to gauge whether they can take a turn and that sort of thing, and it's really dangerous.
Would it make sense to move that crosswalk over to where the islands are next to Woodlawn?
there is a crosswalk there.
Right, but the one that I think is dangerous is the one that's a little closer to Cooley Dickinson. I mean, I assume that was the one you were talking about.
That's one of them. The crash statistics that the chief brought was really, it seemed like it was both the one at Woodlawn and Elm Street and North Elm. That's where
And
a lot
there
of
are an
fire
awful lot
history.
of conflicts out there. I mean, as you recall, going through the roundabout project, that's one of the things that did. It took all the way to 20 plus contact points, and they narrowed it down to 4, I think. So it reduced it, and how can we do that down there to reduce the conflicts?
Well, I think the other thing is that I ride my bicycle through the roundabout just for the fun of it, because everyone's going 15. I can go 15, no problem. And merge, it's great. and I go through the intersection in front of the high school every night coming home, and I have to get up to at least 20 miles an hour just to feel like I can merge into traffic and make the left-hand turn. But it's at 5 o'clock, there's no kids, so it's, I'd say it's probably a lot easier to do it. If I were trying to do it at 2 o'clock or 2:15, I think it would be chaos. One of the other things, of course, is that everyone wants to drop their kid off and pick their kid up, which just compounds the problem. You've got a lot more cars dropping off and picking up kids. Perception is it's safer.
To drop
Hmm.
them off.
Sure. Right?
Well, I don't like dropping my kids off.
I don't either.
I get stuck doing it.
So there's a group working on the issue?
Well, they're gonna do a traffic calming application.
That's my understanding.
Thank you.
David, anything? All set? Ron?
I'm all set, thank you.
Me too. Well, actually, Amherst. I meant, actually, Ned, I meant to call you about this, just
Okay.
to ask you privately. Amherst is paving every road in town, it feels like.
Yeah, they put out a $4.5 million bond.
Where do they, oh, so that's what happened.
They put out a general tax bond of $4.5 million to get those streets done. They had roughly the same backlog that we had. They had about a $21 million backlog. We have about, as of last year, we had a $24.5 million backlog. A capital improvement plan approved by City Council this year, I believe in FY14, starts putting funds towards paving projects. Until then, we rely on Chapter 90 funds. So this year we have a little over $800,000, plus we got a supplemental of, I think, $210,000 from Chapter 90.
Mhm.
Quite a bit of that will be spent on North Street next year, mainly because Chapter 90 will pay for drainage. We have no money for drainage, and it's a critical component of rebuilding North Street is putting in a drain system. So I believe that most of that money will get eaten up with that one street reconstruction next year that we're planning on at this point.
Gene?
One of the reasons why I came was I folded to immense pressure to come up with a ballot question for the CPA for this November. The ballot question we put together has been approved by the city solicitor and elections, and the petitions are now circulating. I did not sign it, but I want to let you know that it's out there and it's happening. And it was funny, well, it wasn't funny, it was odd that you should talk about this, because most of the people were upset where there's not enough money to fix the roads. And they said they would rather get rid of the CPA and they would rather pay more taxes to fix our roads. And that was the general consensus of everyone. And this came up because of a series of missteps, I mean obvious missteps by the CPC or whoever it was that was spending the money, and some that were perceived, I don't believe that they were, some were missteps, but some were perceived as missteps. So this ballot initiative is out there, and I do believe they won't have any trouble getting 1,000 signatures to put this on the ballot in November. Like I said, they would much rather look at fixing our roads, and they all talked about the same thing that Amherst is doing, not all, but several, about the same thing Amherst is doing with a bond initiative. And I'd be happy to support that. I mean, I had the pleasure of driving down North Street twice today, and it's the pits.
Yeah.
It's a disaster.
And the roads
I
in
can't
Amherst
even,
are
I mean,
amazing.
there are pits everywhere. I can't even. So people are visibly upset, and they're upset with the CPA at this point also, especially with the match, because it is no longer the program that was passed, and it only passed by 140 votes with 100% match when it did pass 5 years ago. The first piece of money was taken out in the first quarter of fiscal year '07. And so here it is now, it's 5 years, and which by law is when they can put it back on the ballot. So that's happening right now. And the only other thing I wanted to say that I've been pushed to say is by my constituents, the bags. People are fuming that the Board of Public Works did not have a public hearing.
You mean
Fuming.
another,
I'm just
another public hearing?
fuming.
Okay,
It's my job to come here and tell you that.
thank you.
But the CPA is gonna be something, and there is a lot of, and there's a lot of people out there that would like to spend more money, more tax money on on fixing roads. So it's not without, not that they don't wanna spend the money, or they're not afraid of the taxes. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we're good. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.